So what I want to do is sort of address starting out, so when we think about controlling mosquitoes, how do we want to control mosquitoes? And so you could take different approaches to this. You could say, well, let's not do anything and just let them do what they're going to do. And we in the mosquito control industry argue that that is not an option, because history proves that probably more people have died from mosquito-borne illness than any other single cause. And malaria today continues to be a huge killer in sub-Saharan Africa. And part of the reason we have the lifestyle we have today is, sanitary conditions, yes, but mosquito control has contributed to that. We could take an individual approach. We could say, well, let's just let everybody do their own thing, whatever they're going to do. And of course, that creates, you can create sort of barriers around people with repellents, or they can take care of their yard, but you never really are dealing with the source of the problem. You can take a town approach, and in many places in the country and in the world, it's done at a town level. But what's basically been found out is that it's best to do it at a regional level. If you focus too much on a town level, it's not quite big enough to really deal with it, because the town boundaries, the mosquitoes can fly quite a distance across town boundaries. So doing it at a regional level is sort of the ideal approach. And so what I want to highlight now is basically how we go about doing what we do. We take an integrated pest management approach to what we do, and I'm just going to give you a quick definition here. So IPM is sort of in a general definition is the selection of physical, biological, cultural, and chemical methods to provide the greatest benefit, in other words, reducing the burden from a pest, damage, disease, nuisance, whatever you're looking to control, with the least risk to the public and environmental health, and additionally at the lowest effective cost for how you can do these things. So that's the quick definition, and we attempt to do that in what we do. This is just sort of for reference. This is a map of the district, so you can see where we cover. 25 towns. We are not a county agency. We are actually, we're called Norfolk County, but it was only named that way because we sort of fit the boundaries of the county, but we're actually, not completely identical. The town of Wellesley, Cohasset, and Brookline, which are part of Norfolk County, are in other mosquito control districts. This is Plymouth, Bristol, the Suffolk County, East Middlesex, and the Central Mass mosquito control districts surrounding us. So the district is actually funded by the individual towns that are part of it. And actually, all the towns that are part of it, it's actually voluntary. Towns can actually withdraw from the district if they choose to at town meeting. So all these towns you see that are part of districts here have voluntarily chosen to be part of a mosquito control district. IPM. So we sort of start at the bottom level doing surveillance. This is how we come to know where the mosquitoes are. It's how we know, why they're in the particular location. I just show you a couple examples. Here's a gentleman dipping for mosquito larvae in a tire pile. So we go out and we use these dippers in all kinds of environments to check for mosquito larvae. This is a gravid trap. We call it a gravid trap. It collects mosquitoes that are going to lay eggs in this nasty water we put in there. And it's designed to help us do surveillance for West Nile virus. And this is a mosquito trap that collects adult mosquitoes here. And we use carbon dioxide here to help lure them in. And these traps are used for us to understand what the populations are doing, but they're also used, we send the samples into Boston to the state lab to be tested for the viruses. And so when you hear about a virus being found in a community, they're being trapped in a trap like this. So the first sort of level of control in an IPM program is source reduction, which means you want to actually sort of reduce the place, the source, you know, where the pest is actually living its lifestyle. So people, if you use sort of an adjacent example, if you have cockroaches in the home, what pest control people will normally do is they'll go in and they'll say, we have to get rid of all food that is sort of sitting around on the floor in cabinets or whatever, so you're not attracting cockroaches. That's actually source reduction. In our case, what we're trying to do is get rid of standing water. Now, we can't get rid of all standing water, but we can do it, you know, where it's reasonable. And one of the things we do is we try to educate residents on reducing standing water in their own yards. When we actually go out and do surveys in people's yards, it's surprising how often you find tons of mosquitoes growing in water in containers that people have in their yards, you know. And they can grow in very small containers. It's been documented that a soda bottle cap had mosquito larvae growing in it once. So, I mean, it doesn't take much water for them to find a place to live. This is just examples of us sort of clearing out brush obstructions in drainage ditches to keep the water flowing so that it doesn't create a stagnant environment as well. And periodically, situation arises where we use heavy equipment actually to clean out water systems that are heavily, you know, whatever you want, filled in, not flowing. So where you can't do source reduction, we next apply larvicide. And the larvicide that we mostly use is this product right here. It's BTI. This is actually essentially a ground up corn cob with a bacillus bacteria. It's been inactivated, sort of glued onto it with a vegetable grade oil. And this bacillus bacteria has a toxin in it which is toxic to black fly and mosquito larvae only. And it's one of the amazing, miraculous pesticides that was discovered in the 1970s, I think. And it actually is miraculous for a couple reasons. One, because it's only toxic to black flies and mosquitoes. But two, it actually has multiple toxins in this bacterium that prevent it from becoming easily resistant. You know, the mosquitoes have a hard time getting resistance to this product. And so it's been used now for 30 to 40 years, and there's no evidence that there's any resistance to it. We apply it by hand, you know, in smaller environments like this, and we also conduct a large-scale aerial application usually every April. We didn't last April because it was very dry, but for the last 11 years we've been conducting an aerial application treating about 10 to 11,000 acres in the whole district with this product to control the spring mosquitoes. And then when we fail at that level, of course, sometimes adult mosquitoes become problematic, and this is our last line of defense. We consider it to be the least effective, but it's needed at times, and so this is one of the truck-mounted sprayers, and you know, the product is applied, carried on the air, and controls mosquitoes for about 300 feet off the side of the truck. So that's sort of an overview of our program. So now to the question that was posed and probably why you're here. Why are we moving to an evening application? This is a science-based decision that we're making. And we've known this for a while, but for multiple reasons we put this decision off, but I think it's time to do it. In the evening, there are better meteorological conditions, and we have the highest number of active mosquitoes flying. And so it sort of makes sense to do it at that time. So this leads to better efficacy in killing the mosquitoes, and it offers the best use of our resources. Go into a little bit more detail here. Right after sunset, your temperatures are generally higher, and when the temperatures are higher, the mosquitoes are going to be more active. The colder it gets, the more the mosquitoes go they hunker down in the vegetation, and they stop flying. And for them to be killed by this application, they need to be flying. And so the warmer it is, the more likely you are to actually impact them. And the other reason is that winds are more conducive for the applications. You actually should not do these applications when it's calm, because it just comes out of the truck and just sits there. You need wind to push it through the vegetation and to impact the mosquitoes. And we have had issues with some mornings being just too calm, you know, and the winds tend to die out more and more as you go through the night. So in the evening, you have more likely to have better wind conditions as well. So, of course, you want to avoid it being too windy. The other reason here is, and I'm going to show some graphs in a minute, but all the species, mosquito species, and there are about 40 species of mosquitoes in the state of Massachusetts, probably about 10 to 15 that are of sort of major concern. But of all the major species of importance in our area, all but one of them have significantly higher flight activity in the evening after sunset than they do in the pre-sunset interval. And so I'm going to show you some graphs from this research here. They'll sort of drive that image home for you. So don't worry about the name. This is the Latin name of a particular group, a genus of mosquito species. But these are mosquitoes that are in our area. And you'll note, so this is 2 p.m. to 11 a.m. the following morning with sunset marked right here. And you'll note that for these spring species, and when it says spring, these are common mosquito species that come out in late May and June. You can see how much higher that peak is right around sunset time than that little bump you get sort of in the morning time as well. So in the past, we were applying at this time, and we're trying to kill the mosquitoes here, when if we could be doing it here, we'd be having a much larger impact. Another group of mosquitoes here. This particular species is highly suspect in the transmission of eastern equine encephalitis in the state. It's one we target a lot. And again, you can see that after sunset to about midnight is when it has its greatest peak, and then it trails off as you go toward the morning. This species here is not of as great a concern, but again, you see it peaks. This one in the burgundy here is the species of mosquito that's implicated in the transmission of West Nile virus. And this species over here is one of the problematic mosquito species that come out when we have major floods on the river floodplains, like the Charles River floods. These mosquitoes come out in hordes. And again, you can see that they peak, at their highest after sunset. So that just drives home the point that meteorological conditions and the mosquito biology combined lead us to conclude that an evening ULV application will achieve the best results and will be the most effective use of our resources. So that's why we've moved in that direction. I'll also add that the state board, the State Reclamation and Mosquito Control Board that oversees the mosquito control districts in the state, has also been urging the districts to move to an evening application, the ones that still don't apply in the evening. And so this would be another motivation for us to go in that direction. And so on a pragmatic side, I just throw this slide up there. We've reconfigured how we're going to do applications in the district, and this simply shows you how the schedule is going to work. It's going to be on 4 evenings during the week, Monday through Thursday. There will be no applications on Friday evening. Other districts have recognized that it's a very busy evening for people outside, obviously. It's a good evening to avoid. So we're going to go to a 4-night schedule, and so Monday towns, Tuesday towns, Wednesday towns, and Thursday towns. You guys in Medfield are on Tuesday evening. So, one of the things in this transition is we've recognized that this would create some concern. citizen concern maybe just regarding the applications in general, because you have a general concern about ULV applications anyways. We know it was going to cause concern with some people and maybe even the boards of health, just because in the evening we are going to be intersecting with more people than we would when we start at 2 in the morning. And so, we wanted to sort of get the word out to people as early as we could, start having discussions like this, and try and get people informed. Other districts have made this change, and it's, it hasn't been, you see a bump in concern, but eventually things smooth out pretty well. I'm just going to show you some quotes here from a study that was done to sort of just highlight how we view these applications. I mentioned this paper here. It was an important paper that was done in 2011. I mentioned that this was from an independent consulting firm. Often people wonder, where we get our data from. Is it a chemical company that's doing the research or whatever? So I just mentioned that. In this paper, they make this quote: "Results from this risk assessment and current weight of scientific evidence indicate that human health risks from residential exposure to mosquito insecticides are low and are not likely to exceed levels of concern. Furthermore, the results indicate that based on human health criteria, the risks from West Nile virus exceed the risks from exposure to mosquito insecticides." So where the chemical is applied correctly under the required conditions, the evidence shows A, the ULV spray spraying can be effective at controlling mosquito populations; B, that non-target impact does not exceed levels of concern; and C, that disease transmission can be interrupted. And they concluded the paper by saying that spray spraying is an effective tool. It should be used when appropriate meteorological conditions prevail in a holistic, judicious, integrated mosquito management program. So as I conclude, I just want to say that we remain committed as a district to continuing to implement an effective and responsible IPM program. We want to serve the public to the greatest degree possible with the given resources we have, and we want to be transparent and available to the residents and to the town governments that we're serving. So with that, I'll end my formal presentation, and if you have any questions, we can discuss them.
So Tuesday nights will be the helicopter
No.
and the truck?
No, just the truck.
And when will the helicopter be used?
The helicopter is, okay, and just to clarify, so the truck-mounted sprayer is applying an aerosol. We don't use helicopters to apply an aerosol at all. It's only that granular product. And that's done in mid-April. Okay, so about a month from now, we'll be doing that application. If during the summer, we haven't done this often, but we have occasionally, we have a major rain event and the Charles and the Neponset rivers flood, we may do another application if warranted along those floodplains, because the mosquitoes that hatch from those can be out of control. So, but yes, the Tuesday night is for the truck-mounted applications only.
So people should be advised maybe to stay in their house during that time if they ask, just recommend it?
Yeah, probably. I mean, what we're going to try and do is our applicators know that they know the district very well. So when they start after sunset, they're probably going to, if they know they don't have a heavy schedule, they'll even wait, deliberately wait, till after dark or later if they can. And they're probably going to start in areas that are more rural to avoid more densely populated areas. Come to those areas later in the night, so it would be sort of like we've done in the past, where people are in their homes, they're asleep, air conditioners on or whatever. But again, we let people know. People often call us and will say, do I need to shut our windows? And the product risk is actually minuscule. It's diminishing for people. So if they were out, if their windows were open, the risk of harm to people from the product is extremely low. So, we want to try and get that message it's hard for people to believe that because there's this image that goes way back of, you know, the DDT trucks going down the street and the kids chasing it and the whole, you know,
DBT,
malathion, yes, yeah.
In terms of the safety for people, I understand that that's well researched. I didn't see anything in here about the collateral damage to beneficial insects.
Right.
I'm a beekeeper.
Right, so that study I quoted, they referenced that, you know, the overall research that's been done shows that the non-target effect is minimal. Now, the reason we're even doing it at night was, you know, because in past decades, it was done during the day as well. And the reason it's done at night now is for the bees. And so the understanding is that they're
My bees. Nobody else, just mine.
yeah, just yours.
We want the honey here.
Yes. Clearly the application will kill other insects, small insects the size of mosquitoes.
Yes.
It doesn't kill larger insects, you know, dragonflies, larger moths, those kind of things. It's designed very specifically to be sort of hitting mosquito-sized insects.
And the residual effect of the chemicals that you're applying, let me ask a question before that.
Yeah.
Is the chemical mixture an emulsification or is it a water soluble?
We're not mixing it with anything, so I think it's basically, you know, like sort of in some kind of a mineral oil base.
Yes. So
We're not mixing it with mineral oil, but it's designed as an aerosol to basically be carried on the wind. So the idea, I mean, when the EPA goes out and tests properties after this, they can't find it on leaves, on the ground, because there's so little of it applied, and it's basically carried through the atmosphere. Wherever it ends up, it breaks down very quickly in soil, and it breaks down very quickly in sunlight. So there's no actual residual effect. Once that application is done, and this is one of the reasons why it's the least effective thing we do, once that product goes 300 feet out, that's it. Its effect is done. It's killed what it's going to kill, and that's it, you know. And so from that standpoint, it's actually very good for the environment. These applications, for that very reason, also are much more effective in densely populated areas where you can get the coverage on streets where they're close by. If you are in very, very rural areas, the efficacy goes down because you're essentially treating just a very small area in the larger area. You know what I mean? So if you're going through a huge forested area just down one street, you're probably only killing the mosquitoes about 300 feet on one side of the street, you know. So does that does help you? Okay. Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else I can. Another concern was school and town property. People that would be out, you know, on fields at night, playing football, playing baseball, whatever. And we've been working with many of the towns to just have an idea of what those schedules are going to be like. But our guys are going to know when they come up to a field and they see people playing in the field, they're going to pass by and they're going to come back to it later. You know, probably more toward the 11 midnight time when people have left those places. So,
what's the frequency of the spraying? The truck phenomenon?
our program runs off two things. One, the traps, we get the data from that, and when we get virus information, we can set neighborhoods that we spray from that. The other way we get information for how we spray is people actually call us. Residents either submit an online request or they actually call the office, and so we develop maps the day before that are based on those requests, based on virus activity. And so it actually varies. We technically are available so in Medfield, we're going to be available every Tuesday night of the whole summer. What we do in the town is dependent on what the virus activity looks like and how many people actually are calling us, how bad the actual population is. And so I can't sort of nail that down at any one time. I can generally tell you that almost every year we do a lot of work in June when the spring mosquitoes come out, and then the rest of the summer is sort of dependent on the weather. If you have a very dry summer, by late July and August, you're not doing much spraying anymore because the mosquitoes have died. If it just keeps raining all summer, then you just keep working all summer, you know. And that correlation is definitely true. There are some people who will call just to call because they just want their mosquito spray every week. But the majority of people that call us are calling in response to what they, you know, they're in their backyard and they see it, they have, you know, they're getting bitten. And so
Every street, or do you have like a?
what we do is so again, we would take those requests and what we do is we create a map that sort of gets good coverage over that. And again, like I was sort of explaining, you want neighborhood coverage. You don't want to, doing it just in front of one house would not be very effective at all. So you want to do neighborhood coverage. And that leads to a good point too. So which is how could a resident know where we are going to spray? So on, say, for Medfield, Tuesday evening, after 3:30 on that day, on our website we have available an interactive map where you can plug in your address and it will zoom in and it will show you the town of Medfield and where we're spraying on that evening. So people can actually know whether we're going to be in their neighborhood or not, you know. There is also a phone number for people who, for whatever reason, don't have access to the internet, and they can actually call and they can get, there's a company that just gives out the street names of all the streets that we're going to be on in the town. So, but does that explain, like, sort of how we do it? You know, it's...
A lot of people wouldn't even think to call us, I just wanted
Right.
to, I know you wouldn't go rural, but you
Right.
try to get most of the neighborhoods.
Yeah, so if all of a sudden we see there's lots of calls coming in from a particular neighborhood, and we know the trap count is showing high in that area, we'll actually try to get good coverage over that area to knock them down. Yeah, so.
I'm imagining that the weather conditions on any given night might interrupt your activity.
Exactly. So at the beginning of the season, and especially at the end of the season as we get into September, a lot of times in the nights it's too cold. So actually, we cut it off between like 50, 55. I mean, 50 is definitely too low. We've tried to nail this down better, but once you go below 60 degrees, it gets, you know, less and less effective because the mosquitoes are starting to hunker down. Below 55, we generally call it off. So if the guys go out and, let's say as the night goes on, it goes below 55 degrees, they're just going to stop because it's not going to work anymore. And of course, rain, if it's raining, it's not done. And
So hypothetically, Dave,
Yeah.
if it were to rain 3 or 4 Tuesday nights in a row, we'd be out of luck.
yeah, unfortunately, yeah. One of the things, one of the reasons we do it the way we do is so that there can be this sort of, in each town, this sort of set night that people know this is the night mosquito control is going to be in our town. They don't have to worry, you know, is it going to be Monday, is it going to be Friday, is it going to be Tuesday, you know what I mean? And so in our previous schedule, people knew what night we were in town. And so people would, you know, if people were concerned, they knew to close their windows that night or whatever, or to check our website and see where we were spraying. But yeah, unfortunately, that's sort of the collateral damage of that, but that's unusual, though.
The other question, you said it works for 300 feet. Does it kill them immediately, or I mean, how does...
Pretty quickly, it does. It's designed to sort of get a quick knockdown on the mosquitoes, yes. And 300 feet, again, is sort of an industry standard when they do scientific tests to study the efficacy of them. Generally, about 300 feet out is what they're getting. But on any given night, it might be less, it might be more, you know. So we use that as just sort of a benchmark, but yeah.
If
So-
someone in my neighborhood didn't want their property sprayed, would you exempt the whole neighborhood?
We exempt, so there is state law and state regulations that govern residents who want to be excluded from pesticide applications. And we have the information for people on our website. If people want to go to our website, they can, read all about that. But basically, what we do is say a particular resident is requests to be excluded. We take a 300-foot buffer based on that science, and we put a 300-foot buffer around the edge of that entire property. And so, what that does is on our maps that we create for the guys, it's red. And so we know, the guys know, don't do any applications in those areas. And so no, a whole neighborhood one, but the neighbors adjacent to people who are no sprays will often get. And unfortunately, it sometimes does cause neighbor conflict, yeah. But we don't have any way to resolve, I mean, the state law, the no spray trumps the people who want to be sprayed. So, yeah. So, actually though, I mean, there is conflict sometimes, but actually a lot of times people are able to work things out. We've had people who are no sprays allow the trucks to come closer to their neighbors' yards and stuff, and people try to be nice, a lot of people try to be nice to each other. So, I'm trying to think if there's any other sort of info I can give out on this. We've hit a lot. We've definitely hit a lot, so.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no problem.
the insights.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
One of the things I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of confusion about, and I'm sort of keying off what you said about the helicopters or whatever. This last summer was really particularly bad with West Nile and Triple E in the state. And the aerial spray program that's done for Triple E is conducted by the state, actually. And many people often are confused about that because it's a mosquito control application and they think the mosquito control districts are doing it. But actually these applications are not done by us. They're conducted by the state. Coordination with the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Public Health. And it's usually spurred or sparked by a sort of a declaration by the governor that we have a health emergency.
Those are the granular facilities?
No, that would be an aerosol application as well. So if you remember last year, down in Plymouth and Bristol counties, they did aerial application. That was a very similar product to what we use. I mean, basically the same product, different brand. But again, an aerosol, it's just done from the air by airplane. Yeah.
And do they follow a similar pattern to what you're laying out in the district, or do they have a separate pattern?
In that case, that public health declaration trumps a lot of things, and so the people who are involved in it decide where the health risk is, and they just create a huge grid, and the planes actually just fly that grid. What they avoid, I believe, are drinking water supplies, reservoirs and stuff, and I believe they avoid particular endangered species habitat. There's certain things that they put in as exclusions. Although I think this last year, actually, a lot of the endangered species habitat was actually included because the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species program, they did some follow-up on previous year's work and found that the impact was very low. So that became less of a concern. So it's actually a little bit different. That's more sort of like they're just trying to get complete coverage over a large area. It's not so much a neighborhood targeted thing. Yeah.
And that's the virus program, is it?
Yeah, I mean,
'Cause I know I get weekly data.
yes. So DPH, that's sort of where that's coming from. Yes, exactly. So last year was particularly concerning because they got very high levels of Triple E very early in the season, and it was very alarming. And in the end, I think all the people involved were actually very impressed with how few people came down with disease based on how the season started. It looked like it was going to be really bad, So, but yeah. Any other questions?
No.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.